Hello everyone, and welcome to Yoshi-1 Kenobi's Ruined Halo Prison deck. So the purpose of this deck is to put our opponent in an enchantment prison where our opponent is unable to win the game, and then we poke at our opponent with 1-1s or win with even more sinister win conditions. Basically, we are putting our opponent in a prison. And how do we do that? Well, the basic card of our deck is Ruined Halo, a new card from M21, the core set. As Ruined Halo enters the battlefield, choose a card name. You have protection from the chosen card name. So, as we start putting multiple Ruined Halos on the battlefield, we can name opponent creature cards and have protection from those creatures, which means that he can't deal damage to us. And then all we have to do is deal with the other creatures. So how do we do this? Well, we also use Ethereal Absolution, which means that all creatures we control get +1/+1. All creatures our opponent control get -1/-1. Ethereal Absolution also acts as our win condition, because we get to exile creatures from our opponent's graveyard and summon 1/1 white and black spirit creatures with flying. So Ethereal Absolution is going to deal with all of these 1-powered creatures, and if we put multiple Ethereal Absolutions in play, then our opponent is starting to run out of options with small creatures, as they will die instantly as they enter the battlefield. Now for a similar effect, we also have Revenge of Ravens. Whenever a creature attacks you or Planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Which means that if your opponent attacks you with a 1-powered creature, your opponent loses life and you take no damage. If your opponent attacks you with a 2-powered creature, both players will lose the same amount of life. So you can use Ethereal Absolution with Revenge of Raven and deal with other creatures with Ruined Halo and put your opponent in a scenario where your opponent can't attack with anything, because he's going to lose more life than gain with that attack. And then you start making flying tokens. So we also play Mirror Maid, which is an enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, it enters as a copy of an artifact or enchantment. This allows us to have access to 8 Ruined Halos if we so desire, which would basically give us protection from everything our opponent has. We can duplicate Ethereal Absolution, so the first one costs 6, but this one only costs 3. And we can potentially even play 2 Mirror Maids in the same turn and simply prevent our opponent from doing anything. To round up the deck, we're playing Birth of Meletis because it's ramping, gains us life, puts a wall in play, does all sorts of good things. We're playing Metamize Prophecy because it allows us to gain access to the actual prison pieces that we need, and it's a deck where we're going to know what we're going to cast in the next turns. So I know that on turn 4 I'm likely to play my Revenge of Ravens because it's what I want to do on turn 4. So there is no downside in casting it early and knowing what we're going to cast. This is really a scry 2, draw 2. And looking at each player's top deck is also a little bit of an upside. Now for those opponents that aren't playing creature-heavy strategies, we have Sorcerous Spyglass to lock these Planeswalker outside of their abilities, or lock those pesky Witch's Oven from doing their thing and bypassing our prison rules. We play 3 copies of Oath of Kaya because it allows us to gain some life, deal with opposing creatures, and also this it makes our opponent pay some life to attack our Planeswalkers. Since Ruined Halo gives the player protection from specific card names, those creatures are likely to start attacking the Planeswalkers. So with Revenge of the Ravens and Oath of Kaya, your opponent is going to pay a hefty amount of life total to deal with your Planeswalkers. Speaking of Planeswalkers, we're playing Teferi the Time Raveler. Do I need to say more? We are also playing Karn the Great Creator. It shuts down activated abilities of artifacts our opponent control, another piece of the prison. Also, we get access to the sideboard for more prison cards. Namely, we have Glass Gasket to exile opposing creatures. We have more Sorcerous Spyglasses to ensure that our opponent really can't use Planeswalker abilities. So, and the rest is just to round up the sideboard. We'll also be playing 2 copies of Folio of Fancies, because it's a fairly good card at ending those grindy matchups. I didn't play all of the games with 2 Folios of Fancies, and I wish I did. But you'll see those in the gameplay section. As for the lands, we want to play 3 plains because we're playing Birth of Meletis, 2 islands because we have Mirror Maid that costs double blue, single black, to support our fabled passages, having access to everything. Then we play 4 copies of each shock land and 2 pairs of scry lands to round up our mana base. And that is Ruined Halo Prison, the deck which prevents your opponent from doing everything. For MTG Arena Standard Core Set 21, and let's see some games in action. We are playing Ruined Halo Prison on MTG Arena Standard against Helene Machine. We have a pair of tap lands, and our opponent's going first. I guess we have to hope that this is a slow matchup. This is a slow matchup. We will fetch a blue source, telegraphing to our opponent that this is a slow matchup. I guess our opponent could be playing the new Esper Aggro or Flyers deck. Let's play Minimize Prophecy. Land. Yeah, I like lands. What are you going to do with that Skycat Sovereign? Play a bunch of Flying Kitties. Fury Miscreants. Healer's Hawks. Or just hit us with the Trooped. Let's cast the Fairy next turn. The Fairy Time Raveler will enter the fray next turn. I don't have the double wet. Alright, space some life and cast Ruined Halo on the Skycat. Now, if only we can get an Ethereal Absolution on the battlefield before opponent plays an Empyrean Eagle, then we are in business. That's the goal. We have a Teferi with double draw from Minimize Prophecy next turn. Ooh, that's spicy. That is now an octopus bird. Octopus birds have been seen a lot in the lakes of Canada these days. Stubborn denial. Well, at the very least, we get to draw. Note of Kaya? I can get behind a Note of Kaya. Well, if I had the physical card, I could physically get behind the Oath of Kaya. A little more difficult with Magic Arena. In the meantime, we take some beatings from the Healer's Octopus, granting opponent a bunch of new cards. Opponent is sitting back on counter magic. Opponent will draw an island and we shall draw a Sorceress Spyglass. That's okay. Now we need to be careful about our life total. Let's play the Fairy. Opponent does not counter. We will bounce the Dashing Healer's Hawk. Then we will fetchy plains. playing dangerously with our life total. We are at 5, opponent's at 24. Opponent creates a flying kitty. I guess we die to the thing that boosts all the flying creatures. If our opponent declares combat first, they can't activate it mid-combat. Yeah, that works. You can kill Teferi with your Skycat Sovereign.
I really should have seen that coming.
Opponent casts a Healer's Hawk. What are the odds that our opponent has a counter spell? Pretty high. Let's run it out anyways. Ethereal Absolution. Opponent can at very least C-Octopus on one of these shenanigans. I actually think if our opponent puts it on Skycat Sovereign, it changes the name of the card, which means that we will no longer have protection from it. It's kind of a cool thing. Alright, opponent doesn't have a counter spell. Their opponent does have a 1/1 flying dashing octopus. And we are down to 2. Opponent draws a card. Opponent plays a land. Alright. Well, we roll out of Kaya. Or Hippie-Kaya! Opponent counters. That we will Rune Halo. Calling Sea-Dasher Octopus. And we have protection from you now. And our opponent has 1 creature in the graveyard, which means that we get to start summoning spirits pretty soon. We'll say who's the real Flying King soon enough. Opponent has 4 cards in hand, but since the Sea-Dasher can't deal damage to us, that means our opponent can't draw cards. Metamized Prophecy is going to be quite useful. At the very least, we can call Sorcerer's Spyglass to draw 2 cards. So it's not a completely dead card. It's just not good. Opponents weighing in on their options. Also, the Skycat Sovereign's ability to summon flying cats is nullified by the Ethereal Absolution. I guess I should say it's absolved. Opponent is bouncing back the Rune Halo that was on the Dashing Octopus. Our opponent wants to draw a card. Brazen Borer being dead to the Ethereal Absolution as well. Alright. Let's prevent any more of these types of shenanigans. By casting the good old Teferi Time Raveler.
No, I am not making this up as I go.
Let's cast the Revenge of Ravens. And pass the turn. Although we do let our opponent draw a card off of the Sea-Dasher Octopus. Maybe I should have cast back the Rune Halo instead. Get the opportunity to cast the Metamized Prophecy. But honestly, I'm a little on edge with the 3 life. Opponent gets to attack the Fairy with both flyers. With a Skycat Sovereign, we will take one from the Sea Dash Octopus, but we will gain 2 life. Going back to a healthy 4. Opponent draws a card. We still have protection from counter magic, as long as we maintain Teferi on the battlefield. Second Skycat Sovereign enters the battlefield, but we are still protected from it. Second copy of Revenge of Ravens is a welcome addition. Start with a Minimized Prophecy. Let's see what we are going to get. We are going to get garbage, so let's send that garbage back. Let's bounce something with Teferi, because it's going to die anyways. Send a Skycat Sovereign.
I'll protect you.
Let's play another land. Play Revenge of Ravens. And preventing our opponent from drawing any more cards. From that Sea Dashing Octopus. And on that, we'll pass the turn back. And our opponent still has only a single creature in the graveyard. Their opponent could try to mount a big attack by bouncing the Rune Halo on the Skycat Sovereign with a Brazen Borrower.
This is hardly my worst defeat.
We're back to 6 life. That's called a Spyglass. Sorceress. Spyglass. And this should be the nail in the coffin. Ethereal Absolution. Which will wipe out our opponent's board. And that's how it's done. With Rune Halo Prison on MTG Arena Standard. If you don't lose by stopping your opponent from playing anything, you will eventually win. We are playing Rune Halo Prison on MTG Arena Standard against Duanmuki. Yeah, that looks good. We get a Hallowed Fountain, into a Bird of Meletus, into a Teferi Time Raveler with our signature Runed Halo. Opponent is playing Grim Initiate. And we shall respond to that with the Bird of Meletus. You cast a Null Initiate, we start a town, city, empire. Thanks for removing that land, opponent. Alright, we have a wall. Since we have a wall and we have a city, let's bring out the bouncer. Making sure that everything is on target. And we'll cast the Robber Riches yet again. Ironically, most of the cards in our deck can't hurt us. That is fun. You may kill Teferi. And you will have access to an Ethereal Absolution, which I guess is scary, if our opponent can reach that level of lands. We have enough lands, so we are going to use the Fabled Passage to fetch a black source. To cast the Revenge of Ravens, making your attacks obsolete. You don't have removal for it. Or an Embercleave, or something that would actually hurt us. Yeah, you can attack with the Robber. As if you attack with only the robber, then you can't Ember Cleave. You get to steal one of our lands. We will block you, block you. We will block you. Bone Crusher Giant. Alright. That's good. I don't like Bone Crusher Giant. It prevents damage prevention. Let's go for the Prophecy. It's not quite what we want. Sorcerous Spyglass is kind of useless in this matchup. Bird of Meletus is fine, but we can do better. Let's put a Watery Grave tapped, and ruin the Halo the Robber. Just making sure opponent really does not have any way to deal damage to us. If you want that card from the Robber, you're gonna have to pay the life. And Grim Initiate does nothing, unless our opponent wants to light up the stage. Ember Cleave and another Robber. Opponent decides on the Bone Crusher Giant. We're gonna cast Karn next turn. But for this turn, we get to Ethereal Absolution. You get a token? The token dies as well! No, you don't. Now the Robber is still useless. Our opponent does have an Ember Cleave on the Bone Crusher Giant, which is annoying. Opponent casts a 1/1 that does nothing. Opponent decides to attack with the 1/1s to lose some life because of the Revenge of Ravens. The other opponent will get Ember Cleave, the Bone Crusher Giant, which is moderately annoying. That's the only thing that's going to hit us, because we have protection from Robber of Rich. And now we have to cast our Karn to draw 2 cards. And Karn is going to fetch us
My purpose is greater than myself.
a Glass Casket to remove the Bone Crusher Giant. And then we'll play a tap land and pass the turn. Problem is, Karn does not have protection from Robber of the Rich. Our opponent only has 15 attacks left. Opponent decides not to Ember Cleave. Oh, because our opponent wants to cast the Ethereal Absolution to match our own copy of Ethereal Absolution.
You are only hurting yourself.
I agree with Karn, you are only hurting yourself. Our opponent is going to draw an Anax, Hardened in the Forge, and we will draw a Ruined Halo. I kind of like the draw of Ruined Halo. Let's plus Karn. No, I'm not sure. I don't think I want an Ember Cleave to become a 6/6. Yeah, no targets. I want to keep that there. Let's pass the turn. We will leverage the Ethereal Absolution. Fervent Champion will enter the battlefield and not die because of the balance in Ethereal Absolutions. But they're still fairly useless because of Revenge of Ravens. And remember that Robber of the Rich. The Robber of the Rich cannot deal damage to us. But I forgot about the the ability, which is going to exile their Rune Halo. So I should have randomized the card. The opponent really wants Karn to die. Opponent gets double activations of the Robber of the Rich. We get 4 Revenge of Raven triggers. Yeah, let's resolve these things first. You get a Ruined Halo. Then you get a Karn. Karn is scary because our opponent gets to activate the Ember Cleave. So these two are going at our face. Well, we're gonna activate this. Get 1 token. Karn will die. And we take 4. That seems fine.
I have let my friends down.
Opponent equips Ember Cleave on a Fervent Champion, which should have been done pre-combat. Ode of Kaya. Let's play our Fabled Passage. Let's fetch the island. We have enough to Ode of Kaya, Karn, and cast a Glass Gasket. That's Karn.
Until you have lived as a statue, do not talk to me of vengeance. My allies are counting on me.
We also have the option of a Shadow Spear. And I think we want the second Glass Gasket. That Anax is a bit of a problem. So let's get rid of Anax. And now our opponent is at 9. Ember Cleave is likely to become a creature, with our opponent casting Karn next turn. Let's get rid of the Fervent Champion. We gain life, and we attack our opponent. So our opponent can only attack us 8 more times. Oh no, another Robber of the Riches that our opponent can't cast. Oh yeah, our opponent needs to attack before activating Karn. So we drain our opponent for 2. Opponent gets to Karn.
It is best if you stop. There is always another fight.
Ruin the Halo, but you cannot call Revenge of Ravens. I think. It's loss of life. I don't think protection prevents loss of life. Anyways, we're going to kill our opponent with spirits. Now that there's one more Fervent Champion in the graveyard. I don't think that works, opponent. And equipping the Ember Cleave post-combat yet again. Oh, let's cast the Bird of Meletus. Fetching a Plains. Go play the Temple of Enlightenment. Mirror Maid is nice. And we have successfully established a Ruined Halo prison against our opponent. Which Ruined Halo preventing... Yeah, I forgot about that. These little fellows have reach. Oops. Preventing all these Robber of Riches from hitting us. Our opponent forgot yet again about the Revenge of the Riches. And the Ruined Halo is going to protect us from the robber. We take some damage. And the Ruined Halo does not protect you. You're only allowed one more attack, opponent. I guess our opponent can make one of our enchantments as a creature and try to kill it. That's artifacts, right? Non-creature. Yeah, a non-creature artifact. Yeah, so the only thing that can be targeted are the 2 glass gaskets. So our opponent needs to free up Anax, equip Embercleave on Anax, and attack us with only Anax with enough power to deal lethal damage. Which is going to be quite difficult, especially since we will get a second Ethereal Absolution on the battlefield next turn. And we win the game! And that's how it's done with Ruined Halo Prison in MTG Arena Standard. We are playing Ruined Halo Prison on MTG Arena Standard against Master Marsh M3lo. And we have a somewhat keepable hand. Let's hope that we're playing against an aggressive strategy that's not too aggressive and fetch some Black Source. Let's go for the Revenge of Ravens instead of the Mirror Maid. Opponent has a Fabled Passage, being cracked for the Forest. We'll cast our Bird of Meletus, fetching us a Plains. So we have a land for next turn. The opponent is playing Temur by the looks of it. We drew a land. It's not quite what we want. We really want a blue mana source. Then we can start casting Revenge of the Raven next turn. Opponent plays Growth Spiral. Uh-oh, is that a Temur wreck? Castle of Ventress seems to indicate it is. Clearly Revenge of the Ravens is the way to beat Temur wreck. Opponent is thinking about casting a Mythical Dispute on Revenge of Ravens, to then realize that that our opponent really doesn't care about Revenge of Ravens. Here comes this first shark, a 2/2 flying shark. Mostly used to cycle. Let's cast another Revenge of Ravens to nullify that shark. Play our Watery Grave tapped and pass the turn. Opponent casts another Growth Spiral. We're definitely playing against Temur Reclamation deck. Let's play a Ruined Halo. Negate? I wasn't expecting negate. Land tap and pass to you. Opponent passes. We get to cast an Ethereal Absolution. Note that I said cast, not resolve. Resolving it is very unlikely. If we do, we might have some game against that Temur wreck. Explosion our face for 3. And we've resolved the Ethereal Absolution. Their opponent is on the edge of resolving in Reclamation. Shark Typhoon. A very scary card. Well, how about we do this? We will pay the tax. Oh, come on. Passing the turn to our opponent, who has a bunch of useless sharks, thanks to our prison. Our opponent is losing for life, for no reason. We will cast a Mirror Maid, targeting Ethereal Absolution, making sure that these sharks stay at bay. Then we'll just pass the turn. Our opponent doesn't have any creatures in there by any chance. Ah, let's cast it. Explosion is no longer an option. Pass the turn to you. And our prison is pretty well set up. I mean, even Uro doesn't do that good of a job. Actually, our opponent would be very hard pressed to cast an Uro. Because of our Ethereal Absolutions, we just exile it. The problem is if our opponent casts big spells. Because of Shark Typhoon. Big sharks are still a problem. Let's see what Master Marshmallow chooses to do. Paying life. It's a gutsy move. Casting another Shark Typhoon, resolving a 4/4 shark. Let's exile some stuff from your graveyard. A Shark Typhoon. And an Expansion Explosion. I mean, we never know. It's Uro-Gas at the very least. And we will cast another Mirror Maid, targeting Revenge of Ravens? And pass the turn. Let's see if our opponent actually has a way to get out of this. Opponent draws one of the cards. Oh no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Not Blast Zone. You can blow up the prison. It's an escape from jail card. But we worked so hard. Our opponent can either blow up the Revenge of Ravens or the Ruined Halos. Or the Ethereal Absolutions. I'm not sure Ruined Halo's good enough. We need a Karn. And we need it now. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, actually it's too late. Our opponent will blow up the Revenge of Ravens. Choose a card name. Karn, the Great Creature! let's go digging. And end the turn. Our opponent blows up our Revenge of the Ravens. That was unfair. Uncool, man. Uncool. Summoning the 2/2 wolf that will get eaten by the wall. Opponent's credit card on top and one to the bottom. Come on, Karndra. What do you mean, opponent? You should have attacked with that Nightpack Ambusher. And you get a 1/1 wolf. And let's remove some Gas. And Blast Zone. Blasting through the prison. Even the lore makes sense. Well, we have another Revenge of Ravens. It's something. Slows down our opponent's clock quite considerably. We've lost 2 of those 2 Mirror Maids. We go down to 7, their opponent's at 10. And the 1/1 wolves are now essentially useless. And we draw Karn. Their opponent... Oh, we have another Karn. Their opponent has a Growth Spiral. Alright, well let's cast our Karn. Well, let's see what we've got. Opponent has 29.
I am not frightened by you.
We could cast a big Stone Coil Serpent. Seems fun. Or a Glass Casket. I like the Stone Coil Serpent. Here we go, Stone Coil Serpent. And we have an 8/8 protection for multicolored. Expansion to Karn? Well, Explosion to Karn? Explosion to wall. Ooh, opponent gets a pair of big sharks. That's a problem. And by problem, I mean I think we're dead. Yeah, that'll do it. We get to drain our opponent for 3. Get to block a 12/12, but we die to combat damage. Shark Typhoon. We can't compete with that. Except if we would have had the 4 Revenge of Ravens. But our opponent had a Blast Zone. Well, this game was Blast anyways.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe by clicking the Yoshi icon at the right of your screen. It doesn't cost you any mana, and it greatly helps to support this channel and keep the awesome videos coming.